What's up, YouTube? In today's episode of No, Trust Me, This Totally Works, It Wins Games, It's Not a Nombo at all, playing through some Golgari Shadow. So, this is a deck that we've played a few times on stream, and I always think it's like, to me, the epitome of the idea of like, don't play cards or don't disregard cards simply because there's some friction, like some synergy friction. Play the good cards. So one of the prime examples I always give of this is Blue-Red Murktide. Like, Blue-Red Murktide wants you to have card types in the yard for Dragon's Rage Channeler for Unholy Heat, but at the same time plays Murktide Regent that like benefits from exiling those instants and sorceries that you need for Channeler and Unholy Heat. So I think that's like the perfect example of play the good cards. Just because they don't always pair well together doesn't mean that they're not individually good and can win you games on their own. And Golgari Shadow, in my opinion, is kind of like the Shadow equivalent of that, because you get to play the Shadow game plan, the Thoughtseizes, the Shadows, Bowmaster, Tarmogoyf, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, you also get Urza Saga. And with Urza Saga becomes Shadow Spear. Obviously a Nombo with Death Shadow, but the benefit is Shadow Spear just wins games. Like Urza Saga, make a couple constructs, get a Shadow Spear. Free wins against Burn, Prowess, a lot of the aggro decks. If you're able to get a couple bodies, you can often like outpace Scam, grow bigger than Rhinos, whole bunch of options like that. Beat Control with Urza Saga. So take your free wins if you can get them. Obviously, there's going to be a number of games where you have a Shadow out and you pop off your Urza Saga and you don't want to get a Shadow Spear, and that's fine. Or you naturally draw the Shadow Spear. Don't equip your Shadow. I don't know what to tell you on that one. Like, you don't have to play into this Shadow Spear game line, but having it there as an option is really nice. So if you haven't seen Golgari Shadow before, the premise is, like I said, you're playing like black-green rock almost, or black-green saga. You got the sagas themselves. You have Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Tarmogoyf, Bowmaster, some interaction with like Abrupt Decay, Terra Sunder, Bitter Triumph. In this case, I'm trying out. And then you got some of the aggressive threats with Death Shadow, Single Scourge of the Skyclave, some value threats with Tireless Tracker and Grist the Hunger Tide, and then a few copies of Traverse the Ovenwald, between like artifacts with Mishra's Bauble, enchantment and land with sagas and your fetches, sorcery with Thoughtseize, instant with like Abrupt Decay, Fatal Push, Bitter Triumph. Really easy to get Delirium. So Traverse in the fair matchups allows you to get like another Saga or go get a Tireless Tracker, Grist, whatever. In the unfair matchups, when you need to get the game over with, then you're going to get Shadow. You're going to get Scourge of the Skyclaves, Tarmogoyf, something like that. In the sideboard, we've got an additional Go for the Throat, just another piece of spot removal you can bring in. A Choke, 2 Autumnal Gloom for the heavy removal matchups. A second copy of Terra Sunder to go with the one in the main. Collector Roof, great to get off Traverse. A Veil of Summer, 2 Engineered Explosives, an Unlicensed Hearse, and then a little extra flexibility with our Saga package. We get a Soul Guide Lantern to go with our main deck Nihil Spellbomb, a Pithing Needle, a Hex Parasite, a Haywire Might, Gigantha as our companion. So Haywire Might gives us a second one to go along with like our one in the main, giving us 4 functional copies of like an Exile, an Artifact, or Enchantment effect. Great against One Rings, great against Leyline Bindings, Up the Beanstalk, stuff like that. Hex Parasite seems like a funky inclusion. Really great to get off Saga in the unfair matchup, so you can just freely pump a bunch of life into it, grow your shadows. Also can be used to stop things like the One Ring, can be used to stop blast zones, sagas. You can remove counters off of. Just remember, if you remove counters off of like an Urza Saga that your opponent controls, it sticks around. It just regains the first ability, which thankfully the first ability is just making mana, so you can't just like reset the saga to just a land every turn. But if you use it on your sagas, you can wait until the third chapter ability goes on the stack and then eat a counter off of it. You get to resolve the search ability. Urza Saga ends up with 2 counters, and then you can use it to make another construct again. And then the next turn ticks up to 3. You can remove a counter again, search for an artifact again, and then remove the counter, then search and get to make another construct, and just like keep looping Saga that way. So pretty cool little interaction. But yeah, that's the basis of Golgari. Let's go ahead and showcase some of the games here, so you don't think I'm completely crazy for running this. A little crazy for running it. It's off the beaten path. I recognize that. But it's also one of the builds that I'm going to be playing on our 1313 hour Death Shadow stream. Let's pause so we can talk about that real quick. Tentatively scheduled for December 2nd, so like a week from today. I want to do a 13-hour stream to celebrate all of y'all getting us to 1,000 YouTube subs, getting us YouTube partnered. And so we're going to be going through like just a ton of Shadow variations and all sorts of gameplay, showcasing different Shadow ideas, stuff like that. And Golgari is definitely on the list. Back to the game. Mulligan decisions, first hand. Yeah, so 1 land and a Springleaf Drum. If we knew we had a second land off the top, we could keep this reasonably. Because just like turn 1 Springleaf Drum, turn 2 land, say Bowmaster, Shadow Spear, or turn 2 Scourge, something like that. Turn 3 Grist is pretty good. But if we don't hit the land, the hand does nothing. The second hand, no lands at all, so got to throw that back. Third hand, 4 lands, bit much. I want to throw back one of these extras, so I still have access to Saga. I could throw back like Saga and Abrupt Decay and just trust that like my land enchantment to the yard, plus if I get an artifact creature, it gives me Delirium to get another Saga. So that's what we end up, we throw back the Traverse and the Saga, so we can have our Abrupt Decay up. Of course, knowing the reverse Thoughtseize bug, if you throw away a Traverse, you're going to draw a Traverse. Can't do much about that one. I wish we were on the play so we could Abrupt Decay this map, but it looks like our opponent's just mono blue Tron. Not a matchup we've seen a lot of recently. I'm also kind of questioning whether they're actually mono blue Tron when they go island. So it could be some funky like Imhayashi brew. Got cracking of the map, and we go and get Power Plant. So never mind. Is in fact mono blue Tron. The least Tron-y of the Tron variants. So it looks like they're going to have a second Tron land on the way. We've got Saga to start spewing out a couple tokens. Thankfully, their deck is like pretty heavy counterspell based. So Urza Saga does a pretty solid job of like getting in under the counter spells. They likely have some sort of bounce effect, maybe Cyclonic Rift, maybe something similar. They could have Dress Down in the main, but we can't really afford to play around Dress Down, so we're not going to. When it gets their second Tron land, we get to make a construct. Hope that they don't have Tishana's Tidebinder. Honestly, at the time that I recorded this or played through this league, Tidebinder had only been like starting to gain some friction, gain a little traction. So I really wasn't like planning on playing around Tidebinder or thinking about it. But now, when you see a blue deck, you've got to start recognizing like, hey, Tidebinder is something that we could have problems with. Don't play into it, especially if you're playing against like Rhinos. I think every Rhinos deck I've seen recently has been running a bunch of Tidebinders. So got Springleaf Drum to try to traverse for another land. Opponent says nope. So we're just going to have to rely on our constructs in the face of the One Ring. Yeah. The One Ring. What a magic card. So we'll strap up the construct, get a little extra power. I don't plan on playing the Shadow anytime soon, so it doesn't really matter if I gain life. Most of my hand's like dead anyway with the Fatal Push and the Bitter Triumph. Unless they play a Karn. Nope, opponent going for a Dismember. Fine with me because I do get to untap and Thoughtseize and, pray to a higher power. Force a negation, so it does not look like opponent's going to let us have our stuff. And they Tidebind our fetch land, so really rough spot for us. They're going to get to untap and just like draw 3 more immediately. Play a Worm Coil Engine. So now our game plan kind of becomes like not let the Worm Coil hit us, so that they can't gain the life off the One Ring. And they've got another Force Negation. So I was planning on like killing the Worm Coil, letting them get the tokens, and then killing the Lifelink token. I wanted to do it before they untapped so they wouldn't have all their mana available for Condescend. Clearly that didn't work out. Sideboarding against Mono Blue. Whole bunch of the removal coming out, as you can see, the 4 Fatal Push, the 2 Bitter Triumph, and the Murderous Cut coming out. Ended up bringing in like the Hex Parasite, or not the Hex Parasite, the Haywire Might, the Terra Sunder, the Choke, the Autumnal Glooms, Pithing Needle, Collector Oof. Anything I could bring in that looked like halfway feasible, I tried to bring in. Was I smart enough to show the hand? Doesn't look like it. So we Thoughtseize on turn 1. We can pause. There we go. So we see Expedition Map, Karn, One Ring, Force Negation. They only have 1 land, so we're going to take the Karn, because when the Expedition map, we can play the Collector Oof and shut that off. And then opponent proceeds to not play the Expedition map. So now my concern is that they top-decked a Condescend. So I play the Haywire Might to play around Condescend. And now we're just kind of like hoping that if our opponent's got to play the map, they didn't find a 3rd land. Fortunately, they did, and they get to play around the Haywire Might. So we kind of got. If they do have a Condescend, then we played around it and opponent drew out of us playing around it. If they don't have the Condescend, then yeah, we just played ourselves. So not really a reason to play out the Collector Oof right now, because they can just crack the map in response. Maybe it would have been right to, because if we played out the Collector Oof and they Condescend, then we can Haywire Might the map. But opponent's going to have a One Ring anyway, so can't do a whole lot about that. I know they get to draw a card, but I can't afford to not make a construct here. And I still have the ability to like make another construct and Pithing Needle the One Ring. So we do have some reasonable lines going on. I believe that's what we do. Yep. Get some constructs down, Pithing Needle the ring. We can't attack in. I could have played the Shadow there. Probably would have been fine. Yeah. Go to combat. Attack in. Opponent's got Force Negation, Condescend, 2 unknowns, and a 1 ring that's going to ping them for a point a turn. Flashing in a Subtlety, I'm guessing to block the Haywire Might. Yep. We don't have any interaction for that, so we'll just sack off, or we should have sacked off the Haywire Might. Man, I made some weird decisions in this game. This is probably just Goyf Shadow. I think I should have sacked off the Haywire Might to get rid of the ring, just in case they found a bounce effect there. I think it was kind of free-ish. Either way, no opponent's got a copy of the Condescend. So we'll go to combat. We've got... I should have played... I don't think it really matters. I was going to say I could have played Tarmogoyf first. Or no, this is what I was thinking. What I was thinking is the Bowmaster is lethal, so they have to counter the Bowmaster. If they Condescend, they have to pay at least 3 for Condescend, tap out, and that lets me resolve the Collector Oof to shut off the Expedition map so they can't get drawn. That was the thought here. So we go for the Bowmaster because with the ping off the Peatland to us and the ping off the Bowmaster to them, it's lethal with the 2 constructs in the shadow. They go for the Condescend. There's not really a big reason for them to think that they're not going to be able to map next turn. And opponent decides to scoop it up. They were dead to their 1 ring activation, so it was kind of fine. But if they didn't scoop, we could have played out the Collector Roof and shut off their map. Game 3, I'm pretty sure, yeah, we had some horrible opening 7, opening 6. One of the things you really have to get used to against decks like Tron is understanding that your average shadow hands are just not going to be anywhere near good enough. Like your normal Thoughtseize into shadow hand or something like that, probably not going to get there more often than not. So if you've got like good sideboard cards brought in, it's a good idea to try to mull for those a little more aggressively. Now, if you just have a phenomenal shadow hand of like, oh, I've got Thoughtseize, Shadow, Collector Oof, or not the Collector Oof, because that would be a sideboard hand. Thoughtseize, Shadow, some good piece of interaction, or like Thoughtseize, Shadow, Goyf, something like that. Then maybe you keep it. Still risky on the draw, because if they just go Tron land map and the next turn Tron land, then your hand did nothing. You might take a payoff or 2, but realistically did nothing. The opponent's got 2 Tron lands, the Academy Ruins, a map back on top, so we know where they're going to be able to get Tron online this turn. Free mana available in case they go for a Condescend. Huh. Back in, put them down to 10. So like our out is our opponent not having a good payoff here. Which if their hand was just establishing Tron, maybe there's a chance they don't. If they do have nothing, we can maybe beat a 1 ring with the double Bowmaster. He says optimistically. The downside is if they have a second copy of the 1 ring and they can start looping 1 rings with Academy Ruins, then I have like no good way of beating that. I would have to draw a Karasunder or another Haywire Might like immediately. And looks like that is, in fact, what they've got. So what they can do here is put the One Ring back on top with Academy Ruins, and then they don't have to tap the One Ring for mana or for cards. They can just play a new One Ring, put the old one back, play it, put the sacked one back, and just never allow me to deal combat damage again. And unfortunately, that's kind of good enough against a deck that's relying on like combat damage to get there. Now, there is a chance I could have drawn Terra Sunder as the next card, but I do fully believe in like quality of life concessions, and I don't want to like sit here when my opponent's drawn an additional 6, 7, 8 cards and think that I can reliably resolve a Terra Sunder. I think I actually knew they had Force Negation too, so pretty rough all the way around. Round 2, looks like we're up against Scam. Not Scam. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Pretty clear indication of not Scam. Dasher Ragavan will take that hit on the chin because, spoiler alert, opponent, our deck has no good cards. You can't Ragavan into something relevant if there is nothing relevant. To grow our Shadow a bit. Springleaf Drum, surprisingly nice little pickup here because it does allow us to play out. Like next turn, we'll have Tireless Tracker plus some extra mana. Attacking with Rag and Channeler. If they have a Spell Pierce here, that would be kind of unfortunate for us, but instead they just have a Stalactite Stalker. We've got a fetch land. We can attack him with Shadow. Opponent chooses not to block. We're going to see if they've got a way to kill us. This does not look like a way to kill us. This looks like a way to have to attack in with the Shadow or with the Channeler. They Unholy Heat at our Shadow, which we get to outgrow, which is great because it's the last card in their hand. So now if they attack with the Channeler, which they have to, they die on the crackback because we can crack a clue, grow the Tireless Tracker. So we're up against Grixis Shadow. Sideboarding. I could have brought in Choke. I decided just to like keep it kind of simple. Take out the Thought Seizes, bring in the extra removal, the EEs, the go for the throat, and something else. We'll see if I draw whatever the other thing was. Veil of Summer. Got it. See, when you know these lists so perfectly inside and out, you couldn't possibly forget what cards you're brought in or brought out in a certain matchup. Again, I wasn't thinking about Tishana's Tidebinder, but I kind of was. So fetched on their upkeep to play around Tidebinder. Didn't do a very good job of playing around their what's the Spectacle Burn card? You know, 2 in red, Spectacle, 3 damage. I'll remember it eventually. Regardless, we got Tireless Tracker down. Fetch Shock, push something if we have to. A Molten Collapse. Molten Collapse was very much not on my radar. Just like I'm not used to seeing Tishana's Tidebinder yet, I'm not used to seeing Molten Collapse either. The opponent exiles Overgrown Tomb off the top of our library, draws us into a Bowmaster. I think the Bowmaster is a little bit better against Ragavan, but who knows? Might be biased. Kill that off, get our Bowmaster. Now we got a Shadow, and life feels pretty good. As long as they don't have a Drown in the Lock, which they don't, and they scoop it up, and that's how you win the Shadow Mirror with Golgari Shadow without seeing Sagas. On to round number 3. Oh no, with a nice little Yargle as their, what do you call it? Avatar. Sees. Why am I not like showing the hand? Usually I'm pretty good at showing the hand. Like half a second there. Bruh. Got it. Only took 3 tries. Okay. So we see Lorien revealed, Brazen Bar, Mystical Dispute, Charlotte's Agent, Tashana's Tidebinder, dead and gone. I think I took Shardless Agent here. Realistically, I should have taken the Lorien revealed to cut off the land drop. But I was kind of figuring, the likelihood of them finding lands is pretty decent. I kind of want to like stop the Cascade spell. But I probably, like I said, should have taken the Lorien revealed. Either way, they get to find their second land, and look, they found more lands, so that's kind of my self-justification is, hey, Lorien revealed was probably the right call. Opponent ended up finding lands anyway, so who's the real jokester now? Tashana's Tidebinder to cut off my Grist and then attack it anyway. So thankfully, we know that Murderous cutting the Tidebinder will unlock our Grist so we can make tokens again. Because we're such big brain Magic players. We'll hard cast Lorien revealed into a hard cast Pew 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 Master. Shoot them for 1. Shoot them for an additional 3. Make a nice little 4/4 Orc Army token. Terra Sunder's okay. Terra Sunder plus Fatal Push means we can answer a couple copies of Rhinos. And I do like being able to answer some Rhinoceri. So get rid of 1 Rhino. Opponent fires our 2 1/1s. So we say, well, kind of rude. Terra Sunder can take the other Rhino down, which at least allows us to keep attacking. Slowly tick up Grist, because you never know when you're going to need a Grist ultimate. Opponent Flame of Anors to draw 2, but fails to hit anything relevant. So we hope. And then as soon as they untap here, I feel like I've got a pretty good chance because I've got the Grist ultimate. They need to interact with what I've got going on, like multiple ways. So when they flash in this subtlety to block Tidebinder, then I know that I've got the Grist ultimate to kill them off. Or flash in subtlety to block the insect. I know I've got Grist ultimate to kill them off here. I didn't want to start the turn with Grist ult because that's just playing into Tidebinder. So I had to make sure that they like systematically dealt with my things before I went for the Grist ult. So they didn't have a way to get out of it. Sideboarding against Rhinos. Pretty light, honestly, because I don't have a lot of good stuff for this matchup. Brought in like some EEs. Brought in Veil of Summer to help fight over like counterspell for my EE. Took out some Bowmasters. Took out a Terra Sunder. Like I said, really not a whole lot. Made sure to shock in the Overgrown Tomb before I played the Engineered Explosives so that if my opponent had a copy of Force Negation, I could Veil of Summer it. Do manage to hit the land right on time. Someone's got a dead for our Scourge. Such a sad way to lose a Scourge to a dead and gone. Hate to see it, but we didn't have anything else going on, so why not? We're gonna sit here and wonder what we're doing with our lives. We can't get choked down. Opponent doesn't seem to have any Rhinoceroses at the end of our turn, so You get to pass through. We've got EE to blow up some Rhinos, which we kind of want to be mana efficient because, you know, why not? More Rhinoceroses. Saga going up to 3. We'll go get Haywire Might so we can use it to tap our Springleaf Drum, make a little bit of mana. Choke gets forced, and now we've got Haywire Might v2 Rhinos. And when I say Haywire Might versus 2 Rhinos, I mean 2 Death Shadows v2 Rhinos. One Shadow gets Subtletied. That feels kind of bad. So yeah, we have a Shadow living if they attack, and then maybe we go for like strap up Shadow Spear on Shadow to hit them to get a bunch of life back and then kill some stuff to buy some time. But opponent just has the ice there to tap down our Shadow, and we get to go to game 3. Hopefully goes better than game 2. Similar to game 1, even though Grist I don't think is like a great plan post board. And then this is like the benefit of being a Shadow deck is you do just have these like Thoughtseize into Tarmogoyf hands. Opponent, can we somewhere in here? Oh, there we go. Opponent's got a very reactive hand. Commandeer, a couple copies of Subtlety, end up taking the Brazen Borrower. So if they do want to Subtlety the Tarmogoyf, at least they have to go down a couple cards to do it. If opponent commandeers our Tarmogoyf, that would be kind of funky, but they elect not to. And I was kind of wondering there because I was like, if you're not commandeering the Tarmogoyf and you're not subtletying the Tarmogoyf, like, why do you have commandeer and subtlety in your deck? Still haven't gotten a good answer for that one, but regardless, we got a 4/5 Tarmogoyf cracking down. We've got Saga to make some tokens. If opponent wants to Tidebinder that construct there, that's pretty okay with me. Instead, they elect to Tidebinder the second one, which they get to choose between us making the construct and get, like, tutoring something up. They elect to stop us from making the construct. I did not want to Fatal Push here because if they commandeered my Fatal Push and hit my Tarmogoyf, then that would be pretty bad for me. So instead, we'll just like let them do their thing. We get to map for another Saga. So we've got a little bit of stuff going on. Lay out some stuff that I don't think that they will commandeer, but you never know. I've been wrong before. But it's kind of the same reason I don't want to play out a Shadow or a Bowmaster here, something like that. I'm pretty sure Commandeer says you can grab anything, right? I'm going to like Google this off stream. I guess I could have just like looked it up on my phone, but you know. Isn't it gain control of target spell? So yeah, with all these sagas, while I'm checking out Commandeer, with all these sagas, we're just going to rely on making a bunch of Rhinos. I had a really great screenshot of this game because my opponent's playing out like 4/4 Rhinos, and in a second here, I'm just going to have like 9/9 constructs. I was like, okay, cool. You've got Rhinos. That's great. You know who doesn't care about Rhinos? The person with 9/9 constructs, because I'm about to get a Shadow Spear too. Just beats up on some counter spells pretty bad. And now if you want to start trading off like multiple Rhinos for a construct, be my guest. Okay, so I was wrong about Commandeer. It does say gain control of target non-creature spell. So I could have played out the extra Shadow or the Bowmaster or whatever. Didn't really matter. I was kind of doing okay just holding up my mana with the Sagas. But we're on to round number 4, and it looks like we're up against another copy of Rhinos. You can tell by the fact that they play Ketria, Triome, and Violent Outburst, and Fire and Ice. I know it's a very complicated deck with a lot of possible mistakes and misidentifications, but we get there. So we get Iced. Go ahead and play around Tidebinder. If I had a way, honestly, I think this was a mistake. I think I should have played out the 2 Shadows, and if they went for a Fire and Ice Bowmaster myself, I had thought about that and was kind of afraid of playing into an Evoked Fury. But I kind of think it would have been better off just having the Shadows out. With all these lists going to like Tidebinders, it seems like they're less likely to have access to Fury. But regardless, we're just going to get an Expedition map so we can go get more Sagas. Worked out last game. Maybe it'll work out again. Who knows? I said optimistically before I got furied. And this was me definitely being a coward and going for the double Shadow instead of just getting another Saga and like letting them hit me once. But we're kind of okay because, I mean, hey, we got Tarmogoyf and nice little follow-up. They've got 1 card in hand. They might get some Rhinos, but we've got some removal spells. On a Fatal Push on their upkeep in case they didn't have Force Negation. Obviously they did, but if I Fatal Push before they draw a card, there's at least less of a chance of them having it. Bowmaster is going to come down, ping ourselves so that Shadow outgrows a Rhino. Get to check out what's coming off the top of the library for them. We don't care about a Footfalls. So we'll attack in with the plans of Terra Sundering one of these Rhinos. The benefit is if their last card is a Violent Outburst and we get rid of a Rhino, Terra Sunder another one, and they have to chump block, then they could like double block something, get one of our threats off the board, but they can't kill us on the crackback unless they find like another way to deal with our tokens or one of our threats or something. So fairly safe there. Then we already talked a little bit about sideboarding in the matchup. Definitely not perfectly safe, but non-zero safe. Opponent's kind enough to fix our mana for us with that Beseiju. Then I wonder if I was supposed to go for Tarmogoyf there instead of the Thoughtseize. Probably. Just be more mana efficient. Like, I kind of wanted to play out the EE, and I needed the Thoughtseize to clear the way from Force of Negation. So in that regard, it did its job, but getting a threat down would have been pretty nice. But in Shocking and Lorien revealed means there's a reasonable, or not Lorien revealed, Shocking and Steam Vents means there's a likely chance that they've got another copy of Violent Outburst. We get the old-fashioned Bowmaster ping itself to grow the Tarmogoyf line. One of my favorites, if we're going to be honest. I appreciate the heck out of that line. I feel like nobody ever sees it coming. So Block Goyf feels like a Fury when that happens. Opponent did not Fury, so I was very confused. Crack back for a big chunk. We're going to force negation my Shadow Spear, which is A-okay with me because I have Make a Saga. I've got Pop EE if I want it. Whole bunch of good stuff going for the home team, so nice. On to round number 5. I wish we had like a colorless artifact to get off of Saga that was good in the Rhinos matchup, but doesn't always work that way. Game 1, we'll go ahead and fetch up a Swamp just to have available. Opponent's going to ruin Crab us. Opponent's going to ruin our good time with that one. We'll just keep developing our mana. I'm sorry for that joke. That was pretty horrible. Please don't hold it against me. Counterspell. Actual factual counterspell. Did not see that one coming. I'm used to like drowning the lock out of mill. Not used to counterspell. Tasha's hit 16 cards off the top of our library. We do get to take another counterspell and resolve a Bowmaster. So now if they draw a card off of their Visions of Beyond, at least we get a little extra damage. Not a perfect plan, but hey, we got to work with what we got. Second Tasha's for 28 cards is pretty rough for us. So, despite what you may think, I don't believe we have a good chance of winning from 4 cards left or 3 cards left now. But if there's anything I know about anything, it's that we're not going to go down without a fight. Opponent top decks a Crab. They have the Field of Ruin effect, so we are functionally milled out. Sideboard against mill. Boarding in anything that plays well into removal, like Autumnal Gloom. I keep in Haywire Might because there's a reasonable chance mill's playing Ensnaring Bridge. So Might gives us a tutorable target to take that out. Ruin Crab, pretty decent. I don't have this Murderous Cut ready to go yet, but I can at least get down the Tarmogoyf and prepare for it. Second Crab, pretty rough. I don't see a lot of mill in the leagues. I've considered at least a couple times like putting an Emrakul in the sideboard. I also think I should have played the Scourge there, but I don't think it would have mattered that much. I've considered putting an Emrakul in the sideboard to kind of make the mill matchup not necessarily free, but better. But I'm so used to playing like blue shadow variants that mill doesn't really pose that big of an issue. Then here, played the Ancient or the Autumnal Gloom because I was kind of under the like get the guaranteed damage in so I can get down Scourge and Outgrows Goyf kind of line. I don't think it really mattered again. And turns out I was correct because opponents got Fraying Sanity and good old Jace's Phantasm. But back to what I was saying about the Emrakul. I've thought about sideboarding a Emrakul against mill before. And every time I think of trying that, I'm like, I don't want to waste a sideboard slot on Emrakul. That sounds horrible, and I don't do it. Maybe it's worth it in like the non-blue shadow variants, but at the same time, I kind of would rather just run more like Veil of Summers and have a card that I can bring in against Scam and other counterspell matchups besides something like Mill. So maybe that's a thought. Changes that I would make to the deck. Somebody suggested some new Merfolk. I forgot what set it was from, but it was like a 3/4 for 3 that makes a map token whenever it enters or attacks as a replacement for Tireless Tracker. That could be an option to work on or to try out. One of the things I do like about Tireless Tracker, though, is the fact that it actually draws cards instead of creating map tokens, which let you filter but don't actually draw you cards. You don't get more plays. you just have the chance of like trying to make your plays more consistent. That being said, it doesn't die at a bolt, which is kind of nice. But at the same time, if all of the removal decks are playing like terminates and fatal pushes, then it really doesn't matter if it doesn't die to bolt, right? What else? Bitter Triumph was okay. The Scourge is definitely getting nixed. I think that's a little too cute. I don't want to be like that reliant on life total situations. So I'd cut the Scourge. I kind of like the Tracker, but I don't think it's like a hard sell. I'd probably move one of these 1-mana artifacts to the board. Maybe just like move the second Haywire Might or the first Haywire Might in the deck out or to the board or something, and try to find a little more interaction. Maybe a couple Inquisitions, maybe tough one. Something in there to interact a little bit more. Maybe try to find another threat that could get some sort of value, like a Dark Confidant effect. But it feels like the Saga aspect of the deck's really good. Have to consistently hit the land drops, but as soon as like you don't hit the land drops, things start getting kind of iffy. So the deck, I think, needs some sort of safety net. Again, like what that is in the main, I'm not really sure. I've run Engineered Explosives in the main before and had a lot of success with that. So maybe go back that way. And I don't mean just for Rhinos, but just kind of clean across the board, good against everything interaction. In the sideboard, I do want to find room for a second copy of Veil of Summer. I think that probably the Hex Parasite's too cute, but not the worst. The extra Soul Guide Lantern, extra Graveyard effect could be something else. Choke's probably too cute. Go for the Throat could be something more consistent. Maybe I try to find room for like Assassin's Trophy. But there's a whole lot of flex spots in this deck. I think the only things to me that are kind of set in stone are like the Shadows, Bowmaster, Goyf, Thoughtseize. Everything else is a little up in the air. You could run the deck without Gigantha, go more in on Street Wraith, maybe even have a couple copies of Battle Rage or something. Dismember, Street Wraith, keep the Traverse, be able to traverse for Urza Saga. Maybe that's a variation that I want to try. But if you got some ideas, if you want to put some thought into the deck with me, feel free to go to the description down below. Hop on over to the CntrlFreak Discord. Come share your thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you're mulling over in your mind. Otherwise, feel free to leave a comment down on the video. Other than that, link to the Twitter down below if you want to know when the stream is going live, so you can check this stuff out, as well as, again, come check out our 13-hour Shadow stream. Link to the Twitch channel down below, link to the deck list, and that's about all I got. So hopefully y'all all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.